You might get a question like this. Write a function which helps to achieve multiply a and b and returns product of a and b. And as you can see here, we have this strange notation, multiply then a and b not like two arguments, but this is the first call of the function and this is the second call of the function. And actually, if you are getting such question, it means that you are going in the direction of carrying. And carrying is a special possibility in JavaScript to carry a function, and then we can call it like this. And actually here we can implement this stuff with super basic carrying. Let's try this out now. So what I want to do, I want to create multiply function, and here we're getting our a, so it will be number 1 for example, and here we want to return a function, because as you can see here on the top, we're calling on the result of multiply a, b, which means our multiply must return a function. So here we can write that we're getting a function which will get b, this is number 2 for example, and here inside we want to multiply our num1 and num2. In this case, our second function will deliver for us multiplication of number 1 and number 2. And this is how we can use it. We can write here console log. We want to call here our multiply function, and we're passing a, for example, 2, and after this we're calling b, this is our second function, and we're passing inside 3. Let's look in browser, I am reloading the page and we're getting 6, which means this code is working. And actually you can write this multiply function in better way. You can simply omit here returns, and then it will be a simple single liner. So we have here multiply function and we're getting num1 here, then we want to return here a function, and we're getting here num2, and we want to multiply our num1 multiply num2. And this is exactly the same logic, but it is written in the single liner. I will now comment out the previous code and let's check. As you can see, we're getting exactly the same result. But this is not really carrying. So if you solve such task, typically you will be asked, okay, but what did you write here? What this mean? Why we need such strange notation? And actually you must tell that we are talking here regarding carrying. The next question that you might get is create a carry function. And this is actually a difficult question, and if you didn't have any experience of carrying functions, then probably you won't answer it. This is why here we will look how we can create a carry function and why do we need them. And actually carry function is working exactly like our multiply here. So we can write in browser, for example, carry, and this is our function. We must always pass inside the function that we want to carry. In this case we have, for example, a function with a, b and c, so we have 3 arguments, and we want to just sum a plus b plus c. The main point is that the result of carry is a function, and let's name it carried sum. So this is how we're using carry. What we can do with carried sum later, we can write here our arguments. We have 3 arguments, how we want to. For example, we can write here 1, 2, 3, just like 3 normal arguments. We can also call it with 1, 2, and 3. Which means we are not getting a result until we are getting 3 arguments. So for example, we have only 1 argument, here 1, then it will return the partially applied function, which means we are getting back a function, and then if we will call that function and pass 2 more arguments, then we are getting enough arguments and we will return a result. And of course it should be also possible to call the function like this. So first of all we are calling it with 1, and then we are calling it with 2 and 3. And this is how normally carried function is working, and we will create it just now. So what we want to do here, we want to create a carry function, and as I said, this is more advanced stuff. And actually it is a good idea to write this function with ECMAScript 5, so with function keywords, just because we are writing something which will be used as a library. This is why here I want to write a function, and here we are getting a function. And actually here on the top, let's write our usage, so we understand what we are talking about. So we said here that we want our carried sum, and we're calling here our carry function, and inside we're passing a function with a, b and c, and here we want to sum a, b and c. And actually I can even write it here on the bottom after our carry, so we can test if it's working. So actually, as you can see, here is our carry function, and we're getting inside the function, this is our fn. So this abc and a plus b plus c is our function here. What we want to do now, we want to know how many arguments we have here. This is why here I want to create a property which is called arity. And here we can just write function length, and we will get the amount of arguments here. Let's check this out, console log arity, and here is our arity. I'm looking in the browser and we're getting 3, because here we have 3 arguments, a, b, and c. Now we want to return here a function, because we know that current function is always a function. This is why here let's write function, let's name it for example f1, and here I want to spread our arguments, and let's check what we have inside. So here console log f1, and here our arguments. And actually when I reload the page, as you can see, we don't get anything, because we didn't call this current sum. So what we must do afterwards, we must call this current sum as a function, and we can pass inside something. In our case, we can pass 1, 2, 3. These are our 3 parameters. I'm reloading the page and we're getting here f1, 1, 2, 3. So we're getting all arguments as an array. This is our idea. And obviously we can also call this function just with 1, then we will get array with just 1 argument. So what I want to do inside, I want to check how many arguments we got, or if we got enough arguments or not. This is why here inside return we can compare, okay, arguments length, this is the length of our array, is bigger or equal arity. And this means that we are getting enough arguments to come out of the function. So here I want to console log enough arguments. In this case, I just want to return here our function and call it with our arguments. So I'm spreading our arguments again, and it will just put here all arguments just like they were previously. Let's check this out. I'm reloading the page and we got a message enough arguments. And actually here we can console log what we are getting back. In this case, we must get our result. I'm reloading the page, we are getting 6, it is working correctly, which actually means our code already works when we are passing inside 3 arguments at once. But it won't work when we are passing less than that. This is why we must write here else condition, and inside we can write, for example, console log need more arguments. And now after this we want to return a function. As I already said, if we passed, for example, in current just 1 argument, it must return a function where we can pass additional arguments. This is why here we must return a function, and we can name it, for example, f2, and inside we will pass more arguments, which actually means this is our first call, this is our second call. For example, here when we passed current sum, this is also a current function. So let's name it partially current sum. And here we call current sum. Now here I want to console log partially current sum so we can check what it does. As you can see here, we inside need more arguments, and here is our function with more arguments, and actually here we want to pass inside some arguments. For example, we can pass here 2 and 3, and it will be exactly these more arguments that we wrote here. What we want to do now, we want to concatenate our arguments with more arguments to put all our arguments inside the call of the function. This is why here we can create a variable new arguments, and we want to concatenate here our arguments, and I'm calling here concat, and I'm passing inside more arguments. Now here we don't need to call our fn function just like we did here, but we must call our f1 function, because we want this check for enough arguments again and again, which means we are calling it recursively. This is why here I want to return f1 function, and I want to spread all our new arguments. This is why here 3 dots and new arguments. Let's check this out. I'm reloading the page. Here we are getting need more arguments and enough arguments. What does it ever mean? Here is our current sum. We passed here 1 argument. We are getting in this else. This is our console log need more arguments. And here is our additional function. This is where we are calling this function, and we are passing here our more arguments. This is this variable. Now here we concatenated our 1, this is what we passed here, and to 3, and we called our f1. So we're getting here again, we have enough arguments, and here we're calling our function and we're getting 6. Now let's remove all our console logs and check how it's working. So what I want to try here is our current sum. How we can call it? We can call it with 1, 2 and 3, and we're getting 6, it is working. Now we can call it with 1. As you can see, we are getting back a function, and we now can call it with 2 and 3. As you can see, we are getting 6 also, which means it is working. And now we can call it here with 2, and after this with 3, and we are getting 6. which actually means it is working correctly with any amount of arguments. And if here we carried some function where we have 10 arguments, then here we are doing some operation with 10 arguments, then here we will call this function recursively until we get all needed arguments. As you can see, writing carry function is not that easy, and if you never did it before, it is difficult to write this directly in the interview, especially just on the piece of paper. And the last question that you might get here, okay, but why do we need carry function, and what your carry function can do? This is why here we want now to use our carry function on our real project. And what we can do here, we can carry two functions, get and map. Let's try this out. I want to create a get function and I want to carry it. This is why I am calling this carry function, and inside I am passing a function with two properties. First of all, it will be property, and secondly, it will be an object. And what we want to return here, we just want to take an object by a key, and it will be property. Let's check how it works. As you can see here, we have our get, and here we are passing two arguments. First of all, property, for example, ID, and secondly, our object, for example, ID1. In this case, we are getting 1 back. What we can do here, we can now, because it's carried, just call it with one argument, just with ID. And as you can see, we are getting back a carried function. Now we can store it somewhere and reuse. For example, we can create here additional function getID, and we are calling here get with just property ID. And now, as you can see in browser, we can use getID function everywhere across our application on any object to get a property ID from it. Now we can do exactly the same with map. For example, here I want to create map and I want to carry a map function. So here we are getting a function which is an argument of the map and values which is an array. And here I want just to call a plain JavaScript values.map and I'm passing our function inside. But now our map is carried, which means we can use it everywhere like carried map. For example, we can pass inside our map getID, and now here as a second argument we can pass an array and just have here ID equals 1. As you can see here, we directly got an array of IDs with the help of the map. And actually here we pass two arguments, but we can also carry it. For example, we can name a function here, const getIDs, and here we want to call our map on getID. In this case, we have a partially applied function getIDs, and we can use it to get IDs from any array. For example, here we are writing getIDs, and we are calling this function on the array with objects inside, and we have here ID1. And as you can see, it is working. And this is exactly the need of the carrying to write JavaScript in functional way. And yes, this is quite advanced topic. This is why it is completely fine if you don't know this topic as a beginner. But at least you must have some basic understanding what is carrying and why do you need it at all.